Welcome home. This is the Irish Roots Cafe, where every day's a holiday and there's always room for one more. Come right this way, have a seat with me today in the corner booth celebrating our 52nd week. We've got another full house today, not a chair to spare. I'm Mike OLaughlin, your host. You can reach me on my webpage at irishroots.com, and when you're there, you can check out all of our books, publications, and the written show notes for this blog, and you can search it all and look for any term you like. Just type in the term, and it'll pop up there for you. And yes, there's another free service from the Irish Roots Cafe. You can also phone 816-256-3360 to leave your comments, your family search, or your song or recitation on my recorder. Try it, you'll like it. We'll be sure to get it on the right broadcast. We got 3 of them, you know. More on that later. Let's move on to today's topics. Hough is the family name of the week. Limerick Christmas Chimney. The Arbys Ad is the webpage of the day. The family search for Gillis, Murphy, and a few more. Families of County Cork, Ireland is the book of the month. And what will a Guinness a day get you? We'll find out about that. And we'll talk a little bit more about Arbys Irish Monkey advertisement, or at least that's what some people are calling it. But there's always room for another opinion. We'll be hearing that too. And be sure to get all 3 of my free podcasts. It's really a deal. We've got 3 of them. One is the history of the Irish in America. We're just finishing up on our first Missouri broadcasts on that. I think we had about 20 of them. And the second one is the Irish Roots Cafe Irish Families Worldwide broadcast, which is this one right here that we're doing. And the newest is the Irish Song and Recitation broadcast, where we take a song and a little bit of history of that song or recitation each week. And you're invited to call in, and if you play the tin whistle, or if you play the boron and, you know, a recitation or a little song, or you just want to play your tune, play it right on into the phone there. And if you know some history or background on that tune, or if you just wrote it, or if it's 1,000 years old, tell us a little bit about that, and we'll get it on the show. It'll help everybody become acquainted with what's going on out there. I think now we're going to move on to the notes for this week. But here's what's happening at the Irish Roots Cafe. On the Irish Song and Recitation broadcast I just mentioned, we last covered and sang Danny Boy with the history and what we could dig up on that. And coming up next is the days of the Kerry dancing. So if you've got any Kerry roots in you, you might want to check that out and get ready to move your feet to the beat. And we're also planning an interview with Connie Dover on a future episode. I remember Connie from the 1970s when she was singing with Scarta Glenn, a part of the Celtic revival of traditional music here in America back in the 70s. And she's gone on to quite a distinguished career, so you can sure look forward to that. And moving on to our next Irish History of the Irish in America broadcast, we're going to take a look at the Irish wilderness settlement in the southeast and hear from an author who added some fairies and leprechauns to the story in her own creative right, but it seemed to upset a few people, so we'll talk a little bit about that too. Now let's move right on to the Book of the Week. The Families of County Cork, Ireland by Michael C. OLaughlin is the Book of the Week. And what are we going to do? We're going to take a sample extract from the book. Each week we do this, and we'll take an extract and put it on our show notes on the webpage. That would be on our blog. And this week we'll take it and we'll just list the resources, a few of the resources from County Cork that are listed in that book, including things like the Journal of the Cork Historical and Archaeological Society, which began in 1895. You might want to look at that because every once in a while they're going to run articles on families in certain areas of Cork, the history of a particular individual who might be your great-great-great-grandfather. And there's also Antiquities of County Cork from the Journal of the Royal Society of Antiquities. Several interesting little things, even things like the Ancient and Present State of the County and City of Cork, published in 1750 by Charles Smith, which is pretty interesting. He did several counties, and he did a real good job, right along with illustrations. Now, I want you to remember that coming up later in this episode, like I said, there was a letter to the editor of the Irish America magazine talking about the Arbys commercial that had the dancing monkeys there that were dancing to the river dance music, I think it was. What do you think about that? Was it just plain funny, or was it an insult to the Irish character? That'll be coming up shortly. Now let's move on to the member shout-out. Longtime member Harry D. Collins of New Orleans is looking for the parents of Patrick Murphy, who was married to Alice McGugan on the 7th of October, 1844 at Pomeroy in County Tyrone, Ireland. And that was at the local Roman Catholic Church. Well, we're going to help you out there, Harry, if we can. Anybody's got any ideas or has a link to that family, be sure to let me know. Number 2, Victoria Halligan. Boy, that's 2 shows in a row for you, Victoria. Your Annals of Ireland by the Four Masters has shipped. Lots of good reading there. Now, member William Gard of Stratford, Canada, says he was born in Tralee and his mother was Mona O'Sullivan, who was the daughter of Christina Foley. And he's looking for his family history. And William, your Kerry books have shipped and they're on the way. Number 4, member Daniel Gillis of Canonsburg, Pennsylvania. He wants to look at the history of William Gillis, who was born around 1750. And the family came to the U.S., everybody except William. And he's looking for that if anybody has some Gillis connections that might help. And Daniel, your free birth index has shipped. That comes free when you join as a member if you pick it. And thanks for enrolling. Number 5, Declan Hurley of Limerick, Ireland, and H. Craig Conaway of Hanover, Maryland, and Bob Donlan of Cohoes, New York. You all ordered the Annals of Ireland by the Four Masters, and I tell you, they've all shipped out, and I hope that starts the New Year's out for you with a bang. Okay, we'll have some quick links to the Irish books that are mentioned this week on our blog, so you can just click at them and take a look if you're interested, or if you want to look them up in the library. You never know what might pay off. And that reminds me to say thank you to all of our members, because without you, wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't have the podcast, and sponsors are always welcome. Let's move on now to the letters to Mike from the worldwide email bag. Here we've got Joseph Dooley. He wrote in and said, I clicked on your members only home pages and searching for a way to become a member, but I couldn't find any link to tell me how to become one. Would you please let me know how to become a member? Well, that's right. The members area up there is really where members go, but it's not where you go to become a member. It's where you go to look at records and the other information we're putting in there. There's a link on the left-hand side of the page, and it says member information. If you click on that, that'll take you to the sign-up site. And if you've got any questions, just email me. That's on there under the contact link on the left-hand side of the page. And let me see, I just a couple hours ago got an email from the Celtic Lounge, and they tell me that the interview that we had a couple of weeks back is now up, and it's going to be on for a couple months. So be sure to take a look at that. I'll have the link on the show notes so you can take a look at it and just click and go and see the conversation that we had and what he asked me and what my answers were. I think that'll do it for the letters this week. And remember to phone 816-256-3360, and you can leave your order, you can leave your family search, or you can ask a question that I can answer in one of our next podcasts. And next up, we're going to have the Irish family name of the week. Hough is the name of the week this week, and the spelling we're looking closest at is Hough, although you can find it spelling many different ways as Howe, How. I tell you, there's just a whole load of them. It's even related to Hogan or Huggins or Gahagan. They all sometimes have been interchanged, so it's one of those interesting names, and there hasn't been as much written on it as other names that we've covered in the past. And we're doing this search for member Patrick Howe, who is looking for relations of Michael Howe, who was born at Clog, Jordan, County Tipperary, December 5, 1917. And just in case you're interested, we're going to be covering all kinds of families here in the next months, in the coming year. Right now on the list, I've got Monroe, Dargan, Hastings or Heston, Graham, Kennedy, Boyle, Dealey, Kurgan, Fitchie, Greenfield, Fitzgerald, Kane, Cullity, Quilly, Tyrrell, and Halligan. Boy, we could write a song about that, couldn't we? But those are coming up. And our name today, Howe, we found that it was in 4 different variant spelling groups, and I've got that listed more specifically right on our webpage on the blog, so you can take a look at all the many different spellings. And the history of the name, I dug up a few things on that for you. If we take a look at the Surnames in Ireland book by Edward Nefsey, now, Edward's the one that put together that book. He's got a description of his book on the webpage. I even recorded him and put a little minute or two description there of told about how and why he did the book and what he based it upon. But he's got maps of 200 families that show where they were located around 1990. And that could help you contact some families today or to work up a theory on where the families have traveled at over time. And he shows about 84 families on those maps in more modern times. And he estimated that there were probably 134 families total in Ireland. He also tells us that the name is fairly rare in Ireland and that there's a few families up in Northern Ireland, and they're more likely to be of older English extraction rather than old Irish extraction. And MacLysott, who wrote an Irish Families book, he gives Howe as a variant spelling of the name of Howe with an H-A-U-G-H instead of H-O-U-G-H. And that H-A-U-G-H is really a name of County Clare according to him. And the other spelling with H-O-U-G-H, he says, is found in County Limerick. And he tells us that the name comes from Aggie or Ahi, and had an O prefix before it in older times. So that's just a few little clear clues on the ancient history of the name. Let's take a look at the Irish Book of Arms and see what it says about the family name. Now, I took a look, and there's an illustration from way back, 1768. That was in one of my oldest books, and it gives Richard Howe, spelled H-O-W-E or H-O-W, as the Viscount or Viscount Howe, Baron of Clonally in the county of Fermanagh, Ireland. And he succeeded his brother to that position in 1758. And interesting for family historians is that this family was seated at Langer Castle in Nottingham, England. So here's an Irish family who was centered in England, so they had English roots before coming to Ireland. And you'll note that I have 2 illustrations of the arms of that family, it looks like, in the Irish Book of Arms. And they have some similar symbols in their coats of arms, which can also help you trace a relationship of a family if it has a common name. There could have been 2 Howe families, and if they had completely different coats of arms, no symbols in common, that might have told you they were 2 completely separate families. But the 2 in the book are from the same family, which was earliest based in England as far as we know. Now, if you go to the web page, as most people have, and you go to the free master index search of Irish names, you type in H-O-U-G-H, what do you find? Well, you got the master guide to the spelling of Irish names, and that's where we got the variant spelling groups that the name is found in. And you also find it in the birth index of Ireland, That's handy for establishing location in later days, particularly around 1890. And the Reverend Patrick Wolfe had a little bit on Hough in his Irish Names and Surnames, which is a classic work. And we also found it in the Index to the Families of County Limerick, Ireland, and, as we just noted, in the Surnames of Ireland by Nefsey. Well, that'll do it for that. Let's just move on to a whole new section now. Let's move to the website of the week and have some fun. Well, now we picked the Arbys Riverdance Monkeys ad. Somebody say Irish monkeys, but it's Irish music, but that doesn't mean they're Irish monkeys. I mean, come on. And we've got the link on the webpage. It's on YouTube. I imagine you could just type in Arbys on YouTube and you're going to find this ad. Arbys Monkeys might do it. But I've got the link. You can just click on it in the show notes, so that makes it a lot easier. And when this just links right into our curious news and notes section. And that's the background for that little webpage link. It's based upon a television commercial for Arbys restaurants. You've probably seen it if you've watched much television. And it shows some chimpanzees who are so happy after eating an Arbys meal, they're being studied in the laboratory, that they start a traditional Irish step dance right there on television. And it's obviously the Irish music, and they're doing a pretty fancy little step, which I just thought was hilarious because I've seen so much of that. And the problem was one reader took offense, and he wrote into the Irish America magazine and said, rather than elicit my normal belly laugh, I was immediately reminded of the horrendous Punch and Nast political cartoons that lampooned our people in the past. The sting was immediate, taking my breath away. Well, I can understand that because there was a lot of terrible cartoons done, and they drew pictures of Irishmen as if they were monkeys or as if they were apes. But that was a long time ago, so I can understand the sentiment there, but I just thought this was a funny ad. I don't think it was poking fun of the Irish particularly. I think it was just for fun, and you can come down on either side of the question, but I'll save my anger for stuff that might be just a little bit worse than that. Well, let's move on. We have a couple other curious news and notes. That's a good way to do it here. And here we've got another definition for the Black Irish. I found so many comments on the Black Irish over the last 30 years. It's amazing. Now, this one says, any Roman Catholic Irish that chose not to defy the Orangemen, or join the White Boys were known as the Black Irish, of which most immigrated to Northern Ireland. Okay. And there's a discussion on that. Who are the Black Irish? And that was from a blog spot posting, and I've got that specific address on the webpage. Well, let's move on to from the Black Irish to Dear Santa in the Limerick Chimney item. Now, if an Irish Santa came down the chimney, wouldn't he be a Black Irishman too? Let me see. The letters were addressed to Mr. Santa Claus, Chimney, Limerick. A brother and a sister wrote those words 80 years or so ago, and they put it on some paper, and they stuck it in a letter up in the chimney. And that chimney later on got covered over, and it got uncovered by John Scanlon, who was renovating the house just recently here. And that brother and sister, they asked, what do you think they asked for? They wanted bicycles and a big box of chocolates. Well, things haven't changed that much, have they? Now, when John found those letters at his home at Swanson Terrace, O'Connell Avenue in Limerick, he said he just stuck his hand up the chimney and he felt something up there that wasn't quite right. He pulled down those letters, and he was just amazed that they were so readable. And he was really surprised when he saw the date of 1929 on them. And they were written by John and Patricia Meany, who have since passed from this earth. And one envelope was addressed to Mr. Santa Claus, Chimney, Limerick. You can read more about this story in the Independent newspaper. I've got a link on that on the webpage. A few more curious news and notes before we wrap up today. The stag hunt has been banned in the Republic of Ireland. And some people say that's destroying a 150-year-old tradition by banning the only stag hunt in the Republic of Ireland. And that is a traditional hunt that's supposed to take place in the fields after Christmas Day. Now, you'll probably know if you looked into heraldry that the stag is an ancient symbol of Ireland, and it's said to have been tied to ancient stories regarding the choice of a king of Ireland, a native king, with a stag showing up at the house of the chosen one or something along those lines. It appears on very early samples of heraldry. I've got it in the Irish Book of Arms, and it's shown there quite plainly. Well, let's hope we're not ending a spiritual connection to the past, or perhaps we're saving it by saving the life of the stag since there aren't too many left. Well, let's move to Ireland being the fastest growing population in the European Union. It looks like all the success that Ireland has had lately has led to the Irish being fruitful and multiplying. Maybe all that money gives you a little more courage about getting married at an earlier age and raising a family because you know you can pay the bills. At any rate, it's sure working. And a Guinness a day keeps a heart attack away. Well, according to recent studies, a pint of Guinness a day could be as effective as an aspirin in preventing blood clots in the heart that lead to heart attacks. And now, if you drink just a regular old lager, it doesn't seem to do the job. And that was the opinion from the experts at the University of Wisconsin. And I think they said it was tested on dogs who had clogged arteries, and the results were positive for the effects of Guinness. Now, Guinness might actually be able to claim with some legitimacy that old phrase, Guinness is good for you. And that's been around for a long, long time, but it's very interesting what you can prove with a study or two. I thought they might have been studying it on people, and I wonder how many people would have volunteered for the free Guinness. And let's see, we got a note from our friend Peter Adams, who's a frequent guest, and we'll end up with that. He talks about the Hillary movie, and he said, did you know that the movie P.S. I Love You, starring Hillary Swank, that's a recent movie, that was written by Taoiseach Bertie Ahern's daughter, Cecilia Ahern. Just a little Irish trivia. Well, thanks for that note, Peter. That keeps us up with the Irish media these days, although I tell you what, I don't know many of these people anymore. I've heard the name Hillary Swank 100 times, and I've seen her on television, but I can't even put a face to the name. It's terrible getting old, isn't it? Well, that does it for the day, folks. Remember to send your books, music, or family search to me right here at the cafe. And you can do it by email or by mail to our American address at the Irish Roots Cafe, Box 7575, Kansas City, Missouri 64116. Leave your message or report on things in your part of the world. You can also Skype me at Mick the Bridge. And that's spelling Mick as M-I-C-K, no spaces. And remember, members foot the bill so they get first priority, but we're open to all. And by the way, a big thank you to all of our members. And away.